It's with Tony Robbins. I'll give you the link. But it's really just knowing who you are and why you are the way you are, right? And if you've had complications with a client, with your spouse, with a friend, in communication, you just can't sync up, it's probably because you're not communicating to them in their personality type. Like my wife and I used to have terrible communication with each other. And it's because I was communicating to her in my direct, decisive, bullet point ways, because I'm a high D, right? So now I try and communicate to her, to my clients, and to my staff in the ways that they want to be communicated to. And sometimes when I get your guys' clients, you'll sometimes wonder, why isn't Chad ever working with them or talk to them? It's because I'm not good communicating with that personality type, but I have someone on my team that is. So really, we've taken this science to the level of we match up a personality type on our team with that client, because they're going to have the most success in communicating with that client. So what can expect to learn today is 4 personality profiles. Learn how to identify what a consumer's profile is without them having to take the test. So there's a few questions that I'll go over with you that I ask, where you'll get real simple answers to, and you can know how to communicate with them throughout your process of working with them. That's okay. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Jack. Ron, nice to meet you. Learn communication techniques catered to the different profiles. So there's 4 of them. Learn to develop stronger sales skills by identifying and responding to their communication styles and the consumer style they want to be communicating with. So what is DISC? D-I-S-C. And this is the test that you can take with Tony Robbins. We'll come back to that at the end. D is dominance, direct, results-oriented, firm, strong-willed, forceful. Know you can also be a combination of these things. So those of you that know me well, I am a high D and a high I. I have the highest of highs score of D that the DISC test has ever seen. So I am very direct, results-oriented, firm, strong-willed, and at times forceful. I is the influencer. They're outgoing, they're enthusiastic, they're optimistic, they're high-spirited, they're lively, right? If a monotone person communicates to an influencer without enthusiasm, you're probably going to lose them. S, they are steady. Steadiness is their characteristic. They're even-tempered. They're accommodating. They're patient. They're usually humble, and they're tactful. And the C's are analytical, reserved, precise, private, and systematic. When we get a C client, if I communicate with them throughout the process, they will probably have very bad things to say about us throughout the process, right? If they communicate with Derek on my team throughout the process, they really like us, and somehow I get rewarded for that, right? And I never ever talk to them. So that's why we've taken it to that level. And I usually meet with people up front to know what type of personality test is, to know who on my team I'm going to connect them with, right? And we even have an interview form where their personality type comes through. This is how you should communicate with them. This is how they want to be communicated with. So the strengths and weaknesses for each letter. D, their strength is authority and control. Their biggest fear is being taken advantage of. I is social esteem and being liked. They're usually popular, right? People like people who can influence others. Their biggest fear is rejection. S, security and harmony. Their biggest fear is conflict. I have a member on my team that is a really high S. She hates conflict, right? A C is full of organization. That's Derek on my team. Very organized. He does not take criticism well. That's his biggest fear. So I have to be careful and cognizant of how I give him feedback. So once again, D's are direct, they're decisive, they're high egos, they're problem solvers, they're risk takers and self-starters. They're your CEOs a lot of the time, right? They're your very driven attorneys where you're like, God, this guy is a nightmare and an egomaniac. He's probably a very high D. They're self-starters. There's not much that is needed to get them going for the day. They shape the environment by overcoming opposition, and they usually are accomplishing results. So in our industry, a lot of the high-level producers are very D. You know, I can think of one of the highest producers in Chicago that I know well. He's got kind of a stigma. I won't mention his name, but you probably know him. Some people have even gone as far as call him an a-hole. He's a friend of mine, but he's just very D, high-driven, boom, 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 bullet points. But some people don't like him for that, right? And I've been perceived that way as well, right? So they do accomplish results most of the time. So the strengths of the D is they're a bottom line organizer, right? Most teams need a D on the team to lead the team, or for those of you that have a managing broker, a lot of the time they're very D directed. They place value on time. They challenge the status quo, and they're innovative. Their weaknesses are overstepping authority, right? So I told you I had a real high D. Sometimes I overstep my authority, right? Sometimes I challenge even up to Victor's level. They don't like it, but they know that's part of having me work here and who I am. They attempt to take on too much at once, right? I've been working on my work-life balance, but sometimes I try and take on too many things. Yes, I'll volunteer for that. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do this. And it can sometimes overwhelm me. Argumentative attitude. I love to argue, right? A lot of high Ds love to argue. A lot of the times, though, they don't like, so really the argumentative, I think, can be a strength, but it can also be a weakness. And they do not like routines. So those of you that have worked with me long enough and you know you're going to get a call from me on Monday, and then you're going to get an update on your file on Tuesdays, I have to do that. If I don't do that, I am all over the place. I'm running around with my head cut off. You can ask my team, like I'll lose my keys. I won't know where to go. That's why I have to have a calendar in front of me. They have to remind me when I have to be somewhere. They sometimes literally have to walk me out of the door to get me to an appointment, and that's just because I don't like a routine, so I have to force it on myself. So knowing this about myself and knowing that's where I scored, that helps me in knowing that I have to be on a routine. Motivators. These are motivated by new challenges, power and authority. They take risk and make decisions. They're motivated by freedom, routine, and mundane tasks, changing environment in which they work and play. But their greatest fear, like I had mentioned, is being taken advantage of. So when you're working with a D, when you have that high-level leader within a company, it's pretty easy to know who those people are, right? You can all probably imagine this person in your mind. Be brief, direct, and to the point. They like communication and bullet points. There are some people, clients, team members, friends, if they send me a 2-page paragraph email, I am not going to read through any of that. If they send me bullet points and they communicate to me in the style that I want, I will be very responsive to them, and I'll probably want to work with them. So the first house I bought before I was really working with realtors regularly, the first condo that I bought, the first guy would just send me details after details, and I didn't know myself at the time because I was a 24-year-old kid, but I was like, oh my God, this home buying process sucks, you know, like everything he sent me, all the stuff I had to read, it was just too much. If it would have just been this price, this condo, this bedrooms, I've been like, okay, cool, I ended up firing that realtor and working with someone else who communicated to me in my style. I didn't know it at the time, right? I didn't know that's what I was doing, but looking back, that's why I did what I did. Knowing when you ask questions, ask what, not how, right? My team will tell you that if they're gonna talk about something or bring up a problem, that's fine, but they better have a solution or have some ideas of how to work to a solution behind it. So if they just come to me and say, we have this problem, what do we do, right? How do we do this? They know I'm not gonna like that. I like and these like suggest ways to achieve results and how to lead and get the problem solved. Highlight logical benefits and future ideas and approaches. That's how you work with the deal. What you don't want to do is ramble, repeat yourself, only focus on problems, be too sociable, right? Have you ever had that client where you try and build rapport, and they just seem very resistant towards it? It's just because they want to get to the results and they don't care about being social and doing all these other things. There's a realtor of mine right now, I actually talked to him, the guy from The Profit, Marcus Lemone's, right? I talked to him a little bit about doing mortgage, he's gonna pay cash, but my realtor that's working with him, and I was like, I can't get through to him, how'd I get through him? Like, dude, just be very bullet pointed, right? Do not get into trying to be nice or anything, just give him the facts, do it very brief, and he's like, it worked. He finally is responding to me and making decisions. So at first he wasn't communicating to him in his style. When I got my 5 minutes with him on the phone, I did not cut into, I love your show, oh my God, it's, I didn't give him any feedback or anything. I just, here's where the rate's at, here's what I would suggest, here's how much you could borrow, this is where you could lock in. And I just was very brief and bullet pointed. He still decided to pay cash, so maybe I didn't completely communicate him in the way he wanted to, but that's just how I attacked him because I knew he was that high D personality. Don't make generalizations, right? Just be to the point and don't make statements without support behind it. So the I, once again, is an influencer. They're enthusiastic, trusting, optimistic, persuasive, talkative, impulsive, and emotional. So I am very low S&C, I'm very high D&I. That's my own personality test. If you ever want to see it, I will show it to you. I swear to God, I showed it to my wife, and she's like, it all makes sense now. You're really not the jerk I thought you were. This is just how you are. This is how I need to do a better job of communicating to you. So we now she did a personality test. I learned more about her. I try and communicate with her in her style. I've also done it for every member on my team. So now, Kathy might come in at the end. She's a high S. I know I just have to be patient, and if I talk to her, it's not gonna be a 30-second conversation. It's gonna be a 5-minute conversation, right? And I just have to brace myself for it. So I've learned how to communicate with her and her style. The I's are influencers, and they shape the environment by persuading others. So their strengths are problem solvers, they're great encouragers, they motivate others to achieve, they have typically a sense of humor. So that's one way I know an I is when you can kind of crack jokes with them and they have a good sense of humor, they probably are going to be an I and want to be communicated in that way. That's the one thing that I look for. A lot of times they're able to negotiate conflict and they're peacemakers. Their weakness is they're concerned with popularity instead of results. I'm very guilty of this. Sometimes I lead by wanting my team or others to like me instead of just caring about the results. So that's something I know now about myself and I'm really working on. They're inattentive to details. I do not have the best attention to details. That's why I've had to hire people that do, right? Because I now know that about myself. I'm probably doing it right now talking to you. I just did it. I overuse gestures and facial expressions, right? So if you get that person in front of you and they talk like I do and move their hands a lot, they're probably an I. They also have a weakness of they only listen when it's convenient for them, right? I am very guilty of that. If my wife called me before I was coming in here, right? Didn't have time for it. Just said, hey, I'm going in this presentation. I wasn't a good listener to anything she had to say, right? But when I'm at home, I'm shut down for the night. I'm a very good listener, and it's something I've just had to work on with myself. So motivators, when you're working with an I, flattery, praise, popularity, and acceptance is what they're motivated by. So when my wife tells me I look good in a suit, or someone on the team gives me a compliment on my appearance, I really, really like that. So if you have an I client, or for those of you on a team, and you feel that they're an I, give them a compliment, right? Micah on my team has a very high I credit score, or I say credit score, a very high score. He wants to have a compliment once in a while. So I give him a compliment almost every Monday, don't I, Kate? Mm-hmm. You'll hear a compliment in our team meetings, most likely to him. We got to create a friendly environment for these people, right? So when they're in your car with you, you're going outside and be friendly with them, right? That's what they like. Be enthusiastic. They're motivated from freedom of having too many rules and regulations, right? I left a job previous because it was very corporate and there were too many rules and regulations. I didn't like it. I shut down to it, right? Sometimes guaranteed rates started to be that way a little bit, and I shut down to it. I don't like the rules and regulations. I just want to have freedom to run my business the way I want, right? So a lot of those I people will have that similar tendency. Their greatest fear is rejection, right? So make sure when you're working with that type of person, even if their offer gets rejected, don't let it, they could take that personal, right? There's a client right now I can think of with an I personality. We had to change some things on their loan. The investor actually rejected their application. We had to send it somewhere else to get it done, right? Which does happen. It's a great thing about guaranteed rate. But when I communicated that to them, I looked at their interview form and what type of personality type they were, and I communicated to them in a way, hey, there's just a better option here. We're still going to get this done. It needs to be because of X, Y, and Z. I didn't say they declined your loan because I knew that could send them off the rails. So knowing that about your clients is powerful. When you're working with these type of people and interacting with them, like I said, friendly environment, give an opportunity to verbalization about ideas, help develop and talk into action. For my people on the team that need to be communicated and that are I's in the I style, I give them testimonials sometimes from where it worked out for others. So if we're changing something in our system, I'm giving them testimonials to others. So for realtors that don't have a brag book, right, or don't have some sort of testimonials in your presentation with a buyer on a listing, if you think they're an I, it's very important to give them some recommendation. Here's why other people use me, right? So if you feel like that person's an I, you're gonna definitely wanna have that sort of testimonial or feedback from past clients. When you're working with them, allow time for stimulation and social activities, right? So for those I's on my team, daily team meetings, we always give 5 minutes at the beginning. Tell us about your day. Tell us what you did outside of work, especially on Mondays. We have to have that time to talk about the personal aspect of it. Otherwise, they won't feel a part of the team. They won't like their job. So we make sure there's a social part to our team. I don't need that most of the time, because in that area I'm a little bit higher D. I just want to be to the point and get to it. But for those that score higher on the I's, we have to have that sort of interaction. Otherwise they shut down. Submit details in writing. So when you have this type of person, you might want to talk everything over in person. Sometimes just a direct email to them when it's coming down to a negotiation will probably work better for them than talking out and talking it out. And then create incentives for follow through, right? That's more for my team. I put that in there, and for those of you that have coworkers that you work with, but there's times where I have to create incentives for those people on my team that score at this level. Don't eliminate social time. Don't do all the talking with these people, right? There's certain things that you put in writing to them, but when they need to talk to you, you gotta just listen. Don't ignore their accomplishments, and don't tell them what to do. The S are the good listeners, team players, possessive, steady, predictable, understanding, and friendly. They cooperate with others within the circumstances to carry out a task. These are going to be a lot of the people out there, right? Their strengths, they're reliable, dependable, they're loyal team workers, they're compliant towards authority, they're good listeners, patient and empathetic. They're good at reconciling conflicts. So I told you about Mike on my team. His S is like through the roof. He's very good at reconciling conflict. He's good at working with others. He's our best customer service person. That's why when there's first-time home buyers that haven't gone through the process, 9 times out of 10 they're working with Micah, right? Because he's very good at those things. His weaknesses are change. If we change something in our process, I really have to sell Mike on it and get his feedback. So he does not like change. So when this comes to a client and you feel that they're an S, it might be very difficult for them to move on from whatever they're living in to a new home. So you got to be cognizant of that. They can hold grudges. They can take time adjusting to that change. Have any of you had coworkers that the company made a change and they're like, oh my God, we've done it this way for this amount of time. Why are we changing? Why are we doing this? They're probably S's. They're sensitive to criticism, so make sure you don't criticize, and they're difficult. They have difficulty in establishing priorities. Micah can have a very difficult time establishing priorities. Doesn't make him a bad guy, he's one of our best people, right? But that's just usually one of the S's weaknesses. So we have to help him out, and sometimes I gotta pitch in adjusting what a priority should be. S's are motivated by recognition and loyalty, dependability, safety and security. No sudden changes in procedure or lifestyle, activities that can be started and finished. They do not like the loss of security. So with S's, create favorable environments, personable and agreeable. Express genuine personal interest in them. Right? I know when I work with a client that has an S, there's a form we have in our process called the All About You form. I'm pulling that out when I'm talking to them. I'm talking to them about their favorite team. I might ask them about their favorite restaurant. Hey, me and my wife are thinking of going out for dinner. I noticed this was your favorite restaurant. Tell me about it. Just expressing that general interest in it. Provide clarification for tasks and answers to how to answer the question. Be patient on drawing out goals, present ideas, departures from current practices in a non-threatening manner. They have to have time to adjust. So for Micah, if I put a task on him and it's new, I can't steamroll over him if he's still doing it the old way. I have to give him time to adjust. Assure them of personal follow-up and support. When that comes to a client, hey, I'm going to leave this decision with you, right? But I'm here for you if needed. I'm going to give you time to process this all. Come back to me when you have a decision or when you need any feedback. Explain how their actions will minimize involved risk and enhance current procedures. With these people, you cannot be too pushy or overly aggressive, and you cannot be demanding. You also cannot be confrontational. So the C people they are your accountants a lot of the times. They are your compliance officers. They are sometimes attorneys. They are accurate, analytical, conscious, careful, fact finder, precise. They have high standards. They're systematic. They work consciously within existing circumstances to ensure quality and accuracy. So these people, their strengths are they're an anchor of reality, right? They are thorough throughout all activities. We just worked with a C. We missed their homeowner's insurance premium by 32 cents. She almost did not sign the closing disclosure over 32 cents because it was off by 32 cents. And candidly, the insurance agent sent us the policy wrong. She refused to move forward over 32 cents and we almost missed her closing. So that's how detailed these people can get. So it's something that we mark on our team, and that when you're selling this type of person, you better be on your game. You better check that contract over 15 times for accuracy, because I guarantee they will be. It's really easy to spot these people when I initially meet with them. I'll give them a package at the beginning, and if they start looking through it, right, I put it down in front of them right when they walk in. Most of the C's, they'll take it and they'll read all through it. And they won't listen to me, and they'll read every single page, right, and every single letter. So you can see it pretty easy from the beginning. Those are the people, when you send emails, when you're communicating things about the property, you're gonna have to give them as much information as possible. So with those people, we overwhelm them with emails and communications about the process, and we give them everything that we possibly could. Now, me as a high D, that's gonna drive me insane, right? They will look through every page. So Derek on my team is a high C. If we have anything on our team that needs to be looked through, guess who looks through it? Derek will read through every line item. So he's very precise. He has a lot of attention to detail. So he communicates well with those people. Just some of their weaknesses. Sometimes they can struggle in relationships because they have this attention to detail, and they have very high expectations that people give them this information and communicate with them in that manner. They're bound by procedures and methods, so they're in the box, not outside the box, right? They get bogged down with the details, right? Sometimes that's one of Derek's weaknesses. He gets very bogged down by the details, right? So sometimes we have to say, it's okay, just move on, right? Like, it's okay. And that's what we had to do with this customer. Like, we will change the 32 cents, but if you don't sign this, you're not closing Wednesday. So sometimes you gotta get them past that. Motivators, and I mentioned some of this, but they just have very high standards, and they expect a high quality, right? So you have to be on top of your game with them. Review your emails 3 or 4 times to them. I know there's certain clients, Shay and Haley's team do an awesome job with this. They had a client like that, Shay spotted it from the beginning. She's like, Chad, you better be on top of your game and have everything 100% precise. So I communicated to the team, hey, it's okay to take a little bit longer to put all this stuff together. Accuracy is more important than speed, right? So just know that when you're working with this type of person, opportunities, they're motivated by opportunities to demonstrate expertise, right? Whatever job they're in, they're going to tell you about their expertise. So let them talk about that and be interested in that. They will not take criticism well, right? So if you're going into a listing presentation and you put that package, your pre-listing package in front of them, or any details to them, and you see them read it over, better not criticize anything in the home, right? You can give feedback like, hey, we might need to take some things down, and sometimes homes sell this way better, but don't say, hey, take down all those pictures of your family and hide all your kids' toys, because they could take that as criticism. Prepare your case in advance, define pros and cons, support ideas and statements, reassure C-types that there's not going to be any surprises, right? So a lot of times after that home inspection, hey, we're good, this is everything, there should be no surprises from here. If they are, I will definitely communicate them to you. A lot of the C-types will ask us during the mortgage process when they get that initial loan approval, now this is good, right? There's no more surprises coming, right? And we have to reassure them or tell them, hey, we still got to overcome X, Y, and Z. So set the expectations that there are still some things we got to overcome. Review recommendations in a systematic and comprehensive way, and be patient, persistent, and diplomatic with them. Do not refuse to explain details. So do not do this when you're working with Cs. You're going to have to explain every detail and very precisely. The client of Shady and Haley's that I mentioned that came in here this morning, we're going to have about 15 more conversations about questions and going over the process, because she is a high-level C. You could see it throughout the whole appointment. So I noticed when I was talking to her, I cut her off on a question because I'm direct and to the point, right? I didn't quite know what she was yet. I saw her reaction to it, and then as the appointment went on, you know, our usually 45-minute appointment went into an hour and a half, right? And that's just because of the questions, and I knew that I had to explain and explain and explain. I saw her look through all of the documentation. Another trick with her too, and when you're working with a couple, I use this today. So this is my Yoda to Jedi trick to you, and it works, I swear, every time. When you have a couple, husband, wife, wife and wife, whatever the situation is, I thought starting in that appointment today, he was D. He was very direct, very bullet pointed. I would have expected him to make the decisions. But I have this little trick, and I swear to you, it works almost all the time. When you ask them a question, and the person that responds, if the other person looks at them in their ear or towards the side of their head, that person that is talking is the decision maker. So I will now be selling to her throughout the process, and most of my communication will likely be with her. I'll still check in with him because I can tell she's the decision maker. And that, I was kind of looking for it all throughout that interview, and I asked a few questions. A couple questions that you can ask, that's really easy. Tell me a little bit about the home you're looking for, right? A D is going to be very bullet pointed. 2-bedroom, 2-bath, Wicker Park. Go out and find it, right? And the I is going to be very enthusiastic. Oh my God, we want this rooftop deck, and we want, the garage space has got to be this, and they just sound enthusiastic about it, right? A C type like this is going to get very detail oriented, but probably not going to be as enthusiastic about it. They're usually a little bit more monotone, right? And the S is going to be what most people are, right? Somewhere in between is where the S is. So that's just a little real world example that just happened right before I came in here. I will have to talk to her, I guarantee, probably 5-10 times before they even put an offer in, which is okay, right? We now know that, so we'll keep giving her information. She's on a drip campaign of mine now about information about the home buying process. I would not do that to someone like myself, because I would say, unsubscribe me. I know I don't want to see all this, right? So when you're working with this test, there's a natural style and an adaptive style. And the natural style is where most people want to stay in. And it's where you behave most naturally. It is your basic style and the one that you adopt when you're being authentic and true. It's also the style that you revert back to when you're under pressure or stress. So behaving in this style reduces stress and tension, and it's comforting. So to tie this all in together, I've talked about working with others, whether it be your clients, people on your team, coworkers. We also use this for candidates to work for us, right? You can ask Caitlin, When she interviewed with me, she had to go through a DISC test, right? We look very closely at that natural and adaptive style and how they score in it. So another gentleman's interviewing for me right now for another position. He's going through the DISC test. I actually hire a consultant, and I'd be happy to give you the contact information to them. I hire a consultant to go over their DISC test with me. That's all he does all day, every day, to see if they're a good fit on the team. So this person's a junior loan officer and a dialer for me, right? His job is to go out and get business for me. So it is very important to me that he has a high D, right? Any of my support staff could not have a high D, right? Does anyone know why that is? Because me and them will butt heads. They'll challenge my authority on the team. It will not work well. There was a girl I interviewed before Caitlin for her position. She was a very high D. We would have been like this, right? It would not have went well. So that's my one rule. Unless it's a sales position, I will not hire another high D because we will butt heads. The adaptive style, just so you know, is how they behave when they're feeling they're observed, right? So that natural style is more important than their adaptive style, right? That's where people want to sell in and communicate in. So these are the Ds. They're 10% of the nation. There's not many Ds. Drivers, dominant, direct, decisive, high egos. I'm sure you've dealt with them, but they're not the general population. There's a little bit more Is. And just to review, that's who they are. So if you want to master one personality type and increase your sales, learn how to sell to the S's. That's the general population. They're stable, steady, good listeners, friendly, understanding, and predictable. And probably, in my opinion, the easiest people to sell to. You gotta listen well, right? You gotta be understanding, and you gotta be predictable to them. So if you can take anything out of today, that's what most of the people are. And if you're in question of how to sell to them or how to communicate to them, you'll want to communicate with these guys. And the C, once again, they are the precise, they have the high standards, right? They're the people when you're done, you're like, oh my God, that was so much work. That doesn't make them bad, right? We have a natural tendency as salespeople, I think, to say, that client was a nightmare. No, that's just who they are, and that's how they receive information, right? So knowing that, and knowing this about yourself, I feel will give you a better life. It will give you a better standing of who you are. It will make you more successful in business. And it's one thing now I've been using for about 2 years. And I really believe if you went to anyone on my staff and asked the improvements I've made in my leadership, it's just simply I communicate with them better because I know who they are. So with the Ds, make sure you show patience, display sensitivity, get into the details, and allow deliberation. I follow through completely, research all the facts, speak directly and candidly, and stay focused for long periods. S, quick to adapt, multitask, and confront others. C, let go of compromise for the good of the transaction. Relax, make quick decisions, right? Any questions on any of this? Does anyone want to stay after and do their personality test? Or I can send you a link if you'd like. How long will you